What up, guys? It's me. If you're an avid Disney Parks fan, you've probably thought about taking on the challenge of doing all 4 Disney parks in one day. If you've thought about this challenge, then this video is for you. All 4 Disney parks in one day is certainly a tough challenge, but I've done it twice now. Once with the park reservation system, and once without the park reservation system once Disney got rid of it following the 2020 pandemic. In this video, I'm going to give you guys 7 tips on how to do all 4 Disney parks in one day, which all either fall into the category of having a plan or being efficient with your time. So my first tip is to make a plan. As you can see in the corner over here somewhere, I went into GoodNotes and made a plan of how I wanted my day to go. Both years that I did this, I knew what my itinerary was. My plan included what rides I wanted to ride, what things I wanted to see, and what places that I knew I wanted to get food. And this year specifically, which park I wanted to get food in. For example, I always liked, growing up, the garlic knots from Pizzafari. They've now made them into like garlic breadsticks, I think. And they're not as good as they used to be. But I would always have on my plan, whenever I would do this, to grab garlic knots from Pizzafari in Animal Kingdom when I was in that park. Even if it feels like over-planning, it is not. Trust me on that one. My next tip is to make a backup plan. It is yet again the same graphic over here. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I didn't want to make it too big for fear of you guys not being able to see me. But having a backup plan is crucial. With Disney, sometimes things do not go the way that you plan. A ride may take longer than expected. A ride may break down. You may not get to ride something. The crowds may be more crowded. Food may take longer. Disney transportation. It might be a different wait time for the bus than you expect, which might mean you're a half hour later to a specific park. A lot of things can go wrong, so it's great to have a backup plan, and it will really, really help you achieve this. So next up, I have make use of lightning lanes. Lightning lanes are important, and this video is being filmed in January of 2025. Since 2020, they have changed this system like 4 or 5 times at this point, because you had Fast Pass, you had Lightning Lane Plus, you then had Genie Plus, now we're back to Lightning Lanes. These are expensive. I'm not gonna lie about that. They are expensive, but they really, really help. Some rides you have to pay for individually. Yeah, so some rides you have to pay for individually. Like, whoops, wrong way. Like up here. Silly inverted camera. Right where my hand is, you can see a list of individual Lightning Lane rides. And then where this hand is what it looks like to buy a multi-pass. So individual Lightning Lanes are for one specific ride, such as Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, or Tron. And what do they call it? Multi-pass? The multi-pass for Lightning Lane is a whole bunch of rides. So you can book 3 at one time, and then once you use one, you can immediately book another one. Lightning lanes means less time waiting in line. This means you have priority in the ride queues, and you just don't have to wait in line quite as much. Some rides will still have Lightning Lane lines, but usually those are 5 to 10 minutes long, if that. A lot of times, Lightning Lane can just mean walk on. And it is important to note that multi-pass works throughout all 4 parks, at least in my experience. I did not know that going in. which it would have been really, really helpful if I did know that, because I would have been able to save myself some time in other parks. When I did this a month ago, I booked my multi-lightning lane pass for Magic Kingdom, thinking it only worked in Magic Kingdom, which meant that I waited in line for rides at Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios as well. So moving on, my next tip is to only eat at quick service restaurants. Food is an essential thing, so you can't just avoid eating while you're in the parks. You're also doing a whole lot of walking, which makes you really hungry as well. But doing quick service in the parks will save you so much time versus a sit-down restaurant. Quick service, you can get your food in 10 to 20 minutes, eat it in 10, that's a half hour spent on food, because when you're doing this, every minute matters. Versus a sit-down restaurant where you're sitting there for an hour to an hour and a half. And if you're not trying to do all 4 parks in one day, those sit-down restaurants are great. I absolutely love them. They are some of the most unique experiences that I've had. Space 220 in Epcot, for example, amazing. Coral Reef, I went there as a kid all the time. It is an absolutely amazing experience, and I could easily spend 2 hours there. But if I'm trying to do all 4 parks in one day, that is not what I'm aiming to do. An example is the fish and chip shop. I love eating here, absolutely love eating there. But it means that, or actually, no. Fish and chip shop in Epcot. That's one of the things I always want to hit every time because it's some really, really good fish and chips. You can mobile order it. That's what the little, if I can get my hand right, yeah, that little mobile order icon right by where my finger is. You can mobile order it, which means that you can place the order as you're walking there and essentially get it as soon as you get to the restaurant. Super great at saving time. Absolutely recommend doing that. You can be in and out of there in 10 minutes, probably. My next tip is make use of Disney transportation. Disney has always had the buses and the monorails. Monorail can go from Magic Kingdom to the Magic Kingdom resorts, and it can also go to Epcot, but you have to switch lines. And then bus transportation have always been there to all the resorts, Disney Springs, and all of the theme parks, and you have park-to-park buses every day after 10 a.m. for park hopping. Absolutely make use of this. You can save yourself some money through like Lyft and Ubers, but Disney has it there for you. Take advantage of it. And there's also the Disney Skyliner, which goes between Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And it also goes to a couple different resorts. Disney Transport may not be the best option for you. It is very much a preference thing. I got screwed this last trip because the Disney buses ended up being late. I had to wait an hour for a bus from Magic to Animal Kingdom, and I barely made it to do the things in Animal Kingdom I wanted to do. But that is a very rare thing that happens. Usually Disney Transport is absolutely amazing, so absolutely take advantage of this while you can. Disney has 3 modes of transportation, and then you also have Lyft and Uber. And if you have a car, you can just drive between them. But absolutely make use of Disney Transportation. It's there for a reason. My next tip is to know the hours of parades and shows. This is for a number of reasons. 1, parades draw massive crowds. The Festival of Fantasy Parade in Magic Kingdom, great example. There is a massive crowd for this every single time. It sucks to walk through Main Street because they have the road closed and you have to be like bottlenecked into the sidewalk. It's terrible and it takes forever to get through. So if you're trying to go from place to place during the parade, you probably want to find an alternate route. It's also important to know because the rides will have lower wait times while shows are going on. This is more true towards the evening hours, and because the parades and the shows draw such a big crowd, the wait times are almost nothing. Luminous is the nighttime show in Epcot. I have watched people flood the World Showcase to get seats for this, and if I have multiple days in the parks, I'll just take one night in Epcot to go do a whole bunch of rides. Because everybody floods the area for these shows, leaving the rides empty. The people who are on the rides are your ride junkies. If you're not a fan of the rides, you're probably at these shows, and it's a lot different when you have more than one day in the parks. And if you're not trying to do all 4 parks in one day, then you can go to some of these shows and see them and not worry about getting to the rides, and it all depends on what you want to do. Personally, I love the rides at Disney, so I don't necessarily care about missing a show. I've seen a whole lot of fireworks in my lifetime, and I will certainly see more. But yeah, rides in Epcot will have a lower wait time while Luminous is going on. This was true when it was Harmonious, and this was true when it was the show before that. It's just the way crowd science works. Because these shows draw some big crowds, the crowds have to go someplace, and they're at the show, which means they're not at the ride. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind that they do draw some fairly big crowds, and just be conscious of that as you're trying to navigate. And my last tip is to be okay with missing a few things. My definition of doing all 4 parks in one day is doing the things in each park that I like doing. I go to Disney 2 to 3 times a year. So I've been to all these shows, these experiences, I've done all these rides more times than I can count on 2 hands. You're not going to be able to do everything in one day. You can attempt to do it, but if you're trying to do every ride in every Disney park, that's going to be almost impossible to do in one day. I have seen people do it. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not fun to me. Because that is a whole nother level of planning and rushing around. If I'm going to Disney and doing all 4 parks, I want to be able to enjoy the parks, and that means not getting to every ride, not getting to every show, not getting to eat at every restaurant. My definition of doing all 4 parks in one day is hitting my favorites, essentially. I make sure in Epcot I always hit Test Track, Guardians, Figment. There's one more I always hit, but I can't remember it. In Hollywood, I always hit Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, Slinky Dog Dash, Runaway Railway, but I've gotten my head around not doing Rise of the Resistance every time, because that is such a crowded ride and it's a long ride, and I've done it so many times. So you may not get to everything that you want to get to, but the entire point of Disney is to have fun. If you have to sacrifice not getting to one thing to be able to have an entire day of fun, that's worth it. When I went in December, I didn't get to do Living with the Land with the holiday over theme, and I was okay with that. I had done it the past year, I had seen it, it didn't change, and I was okay with missing it because it meant I got to do all of these other things, and in the end, I only missed one thing. Had the Disney buses not made me wait an hour to go from Magic to Animal Kingdom, maybe I would have gotten it. Who knows? But in the end, be okay with missing a few things. Prioritize fun. So hopefully this helps. I've given you guys my 7 biggest tips on how to do all 4 Disney parks in one day. And in the end, it all comes down to planning it out and being efficient with your time. So hopefully this helped, and let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions on any of these tips or if you guys have used any of these tips. Thanks, guys.